Kia ora everybody. Tomorrow will be a very big day here at Parliament. We're expecting a large crowd out the front as part of the hikoi. We'll have some Labour MPs joining the hikoi on their march from Waitangi Park here to Parliament, and other Labour MPs will be joining me in being here to meet the protesters when they arrive. I think that will be a very diverse crowd. I think we'll see a number of non-Māori New Zealanders out there expressing solidarity with Māori, also expressing their disappointment in the path that this government has chosen. It is a path that is designed to divide the country. It's a path that is playing to prejudice. It's a path that is designed to whip up fear, anger and resentment. Unfortunately, the National Party have completely bought into that by voting for the first reading of this bill. And I think now it's time for a very quick select committee process so that this bill can get back to the House and be voted down. The longer this debate goes on, the more dividing will take place, the more polarised the country is likely to become, the more hate we will see expressed, the more racism we will see expressed. And ultimately, that's going to be bad for New Zealand, but it's also an international embarrassment. We're seeing New Zealand's backtrack on issues around the Treaty of Waitangi making international news, when New Zealand previously was recognised internationally for being a world leader in righting the wrongs of the past and actually dealing with Indigenous rights going forward. And I think it's really disappointing that we're in this position. The current government could put a stop to all of that, and I think Christopher Luxon should do that. No, I'll be here at Parliament to go out and to meet with them. I think the lineup of speakers is currently still being discussed. I'll be there. You know, these things have a life, tend to get a bit of a life of their own, but I'll be there. You're the man I think this bill is designed to bring out the worst in New Zealanders. It's designed to provoke fear, resentment and hatred, and that does include playing to racism.
You're the man wanting to be Prime Minister. Why not go out there and speak to him?
I'll be available, so I will be out there, and it will really just depend on, you know, what we're not the organiser of this event, so it will depend on what the organisers decide.
What they might tell you who from Labour can speak.
They will determine who speaks, but I'm available.
Why would they be the ministers of who speaks?
Because it's their event. They're the organisers. Yeah. I think with all of these events, you sort of just, you know, you test the vibe and you test the feel, but I will certainly be there as a non-Māori New Zealander to express my support for Māori, my view that this government do not speak for the vast majority of New Zealanders in voting in favour of the Treaty Principles Bill, that actually, in my view, most non-Māori New Zealanders are proud of the progress that we've made as a country, and that even for a number of non-Māori New Zealanders who maybe think that our government went too far, they're now incredibly uncomfortable that this government are going far too far in the other direction.
So David Seymour
No, I don't. I think a haka is a very legitimate form of challenge. You know, we accept haka all over the place in New Zealand as a legitimate form of challenge and celebration. And I think if we're going to embrace that in some contexts, then we can't be selective about that. Māori culture says that a haka is a legitimate form of challenge, and I think we need to be willing to accept that in Parliament. I mean, I don't think we'd want to see that all of the time, but I think in extraordinary circumstances, and I think the Treaty Principles Bill is an extraordinary circumstance, I think it was justified and valid. I think that would be very unfortunate if that's what he did. Now, there are rules around Parliament around criticising the Speaker, and of course he hasn't actually made a decision on that, so I'm not going to speculate on that. I wasn't aware of that, but you know, ultimately those are really sort of questions for Shane. I'd ask him what he's trying to achieve by doing that. You know, New Zealand First voted in favour of the Treaty Principles Bill, despite saying before the election they were opposed to it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to, do the scheduling for Parliament, unfortunately. That was the government's choice to bring that bill forward. I had made arrangements to be here this week and be available all week this week. They brought it forward by a week, and I wasn't able to reschedule the stuff that I had on.
You said that you'd like a short select committee process, yet you previously called for the government not to have things rushed through select committee. So are you just picking and choosing?
I think that one of the great ironies here is that this will be one of the few bills that actually gets a full 6 months at select committee under this government. Almost every other bill has gone through a truncated process, and yet this bill, which is going to lead to division, which is going to create controversy, which is going to be a stain on this Parliament, seems to be dawdling its way through the process. I mean, there's a huge contradiction there.
So how do you decide which one should be 6 months and which should
Well, this bill shouldn't be going to select committee at all.
Kerry Martin narrated said that what she would like to see, or what the Māori Party would like to see, is for this debate to be taken out of Parliament and for it to be centred on Ngāti Maha and the question of Māori sovereignty. Where does Labour stand on that?
Ultimately, if people want to have a debate about where the treaty fits within the constitutional arrangements of New Zealand going forward, we're certainly open to having discussions about that. This is not the way to do it. The Treaty Principles Bill basically says that you should just ride over the top of everything that's happened in the last 40 or 50 years and impose an entirely different interpretation of the treaty on it, which actually, I think most people would conclude, completely rewrites our contemporary understanding of the treaty. That's not the way of having a constructive debate. Let's be clear, David Seymour's not aiming for a constructive debate. David Seymour is aiming to create division, to create fear, and to divide the country. I don't think it would be fair to say that we buried it. It was publicly released and it was certainly available. Anybody can read it. What we said was that we acknowledged that the He Puapua report went a lot further than many New Zealanders were comfortable with, and so we needed to slow right down, and I think that was the right decision. I think in this area, as our government, as many previous New Zealand governments had been seeking to do, was looking to try and build consensus, to try and continue to make change, but in a way that brings people with us on a constructive process. And you've seen former Prime Ministers coming out and criticising the approach taken by this government. John Key did it a couple of months ago, Jenny Shipley did it over the weekend. I think it really undermines the progress that we've made as a country.
What do you make of Labour's support of the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Deletion Bill in 2005, which went to consultation and was voted out as a similar scenario?
I'd have to go back and have a look at that, sorry. I wasn't in Parliament at the time, so I couldn't give you...
Party Māori previously called for a separate Māori Parliament. What's Labour's position on that?
No, we believe that there is one Parliament for New Zealand and this is it.
Right, so if they said that was something that you would put as part of a coalition, would you agree?
No.
So if they said they weren't going to provide you support unless you gave them that, you would walk away?
Look, a Māori Parliament, a separate Parliament, is not on the table for Labour. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, and I think there's nothing wrong, and I think in fact it's a sign that we can work very constructively together. That we have come together and said that we are unanimously amongst the three parties opposed to this legislation. That we want to see the bill killed, and that we'll work together to ensure that that happens.
Going forward, then, will you be working on other issues outside of the Treaty Principles Bill with the Party Māori and the Green Party to ensure that the national coalition government is a one-team government?
We have a very constructive working relationship behind the scenes. I think, as we move through the term of Parliament, there may well be other opportunities where we can show the public how constructively we can work together. And I think that given the chaos that people have seen since this coalition was elected, I think they will want to see that there is an alternative that's based on mutual respect, that's based on constructive working and collaborative working relationships, something this government don't seem to be able to provide.
Have you done any internal polling currently around Māori voters feeling about Labour as a party vote?
We've certainly seen a lot of, we haven't done any polling, but we've certainly seen a lot of support from Māori across the country, and recognising, we won the party vote on all of the Māori electorates at the last election, and, we'll be working really hard to do so again at the next election.
What do you think that strategy might look like to secure at the least those that did vote and then increase that party number?
Look, my focus right at this moment is on opposing what this current government are doing, which is taking the country backwards. We always have in the back of our minds campaign strategy for the next election, but a little bit early to talk about that yet.
Oh, because this Treaty Principles Bill is part and parcel of that strategy that Māori will be using at Labour to...
I'm sure, and they're going to see us very vigorously opposing that. Absolutely. I want to thank all of those who come along to the protest tomorrow. Recognise them standing up in solidarity with Māori, recognise that there'll be a lot of non-Māori there, and say thank you to them. This is not New Zealand. The Treaty Principles Bill is not New Zealand, and the Labour Party will continue to vigorously oppose it.
Do you think they should allow David Seymour to speak?
That's up to the organisers.
I mean, he's the instigator of all this, the architect of this. Shouldn't they listen to what he's got to say?
As I said, that's really a question for the organisers.
How much of this do you think is David Seymour's point of difference with the ACT party? Like, is he just generating publicity for his party and for Wondipa?
David Seymour has worked out that fear and division can be a political weapon, and he is using fear and division as a political weapon in a way that's really taking the country backwards. I think his approach is reprehensible. I think it doesn't represent the best of New Zealand, it represents the worst of New Zealand. Cool. All right, thanks everybody. Cheers.